Amanda.
And I'm Mel.
And this is the Road Back Home podcast. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Road Back Home. I feel like I haven't been here in a while. What about you, Mel?
I feel the same way. And I come to you from my early morning in Boston, where I've literally just gotten out of the shower and I'm still in my pajamas. So hi.
And I need a shower, which is why this is an audio-only episode.
Oh, I wasn't aware. That's why I didn't even have to say that. But there's the visual. I look amazing. I've got makeup on. I've got my high heels on. So how's it going, Amanda?
So, it's going really well. I was back at work last week. We'll talk about we've both been on a bit of a break recently. I was back at work, and I have been meeting people again since the show, who I haven't seen since the show and who were at the show. So so it was great. I wasn't expecting that because I had kind of forgotten about it. It's something that
Yeah.
has happened, and we're on to just moved on, like life is lifing again. But it was just lovely then to have a few people last week saying, "Oh, I haven't seen you since the show," and loved it. And one woman said, I went along not knowing what to expect. I was just going along to support you, really. She said, but
Yeah.
then when you did that exercise,
Yeah.
she said, I really, like, it really gave me a lesson that I didn't really realize that I needed to learn. She said, so I came away with something not expecting to. And then there was saying about Mel, it was amazing to meet Mel, and she's so funny, and so that was lovely.
Mel is a few screws loose. But yeah, the exercise was very effective. Gosh, I love thinking back to that because I think that's when everything just kind of fell into place in the room as well. The way that they were led there, and then this exercise, and then I was so proud of the people who spoke up and shared it. We don't have to go into the whole thing, but it really was. It was so much better than I could have ever expected it to be, and I'm so excited for the next one.
Yeah, and it's just over a month ago now, and that feels like it was a long month, because shortly after that, of course, we took a bit of a break, and just the month of April was so abundant. Like there was just so much happening. Um, like 2 days after the live event, I adopted a dog.
Yeah, that was literally, you had the idea of what kind of a dog you want. The dog arrived at the rescue and you owned the dog, I think maybe 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah, she just kind of like I declared it the day before the gig on the Wednesday. I was like, right, that's it. I'm ready. I'm ready for a dog, and I had a very clear idea of like she literally just showed up. It's the craziest thing. She's exactly what I had in mind.
Yeah.
So she's a 2-year-old Cavachon. Her name is Molly. She's behind me. She is a great sleeper. It's so funny having a small dog because Ted, as you know, was a big dog, and I had Ted for 16 years. And Molly is much more like a cat. She's just very low maintenance. Once she gets her couple of outings a day, and we do a big sniff session in the morning, and then we do a big sniff session in the evening if I'm working. But if I'm working from home, we usually get another sniff
Now,
session in during the day. I say a sniff
is a
session.
sniff session taking her for a walk so she can sniff everything she walks by?
Yes, and she doesn't walk as much. So Ted was much more into the walking,
Yeah.
and he'd walk, and of course he'd do a bit of sniffing. And also, I would have had Ted off lead a lot. So I would go places where I could take him off lead. But Molly I wouldn't put her off lead. So it's just I'm having a different experience with a small dog. There's much more sniffing, less walking. There's and then there's much more sleeping and less energy required. She doesn't have as much energy to give off. And she sleeps like a teddy bear. Like she cuddles
looks
up.
like a
She
teddy
has her
bear.
own bed. She does. And she has her own bed. And a part of my training to, kind of like make her resilient enough to be without me while I'm in work is that she sleeps in her own bed at night. But we do cuddles at nighttime and in the morning. So
She's a baby.
And she is literally like a teddy bear.
She's literally a baby.
She's like a teddy. So I'm delighted that has transpired. We also we also got a new niece
Yes, we
around the
did.
yeah.
And she's
So
scrumptious.
Maeve has arrived. She's gorgeous. So there has been a lot of like just newness and that has taken over, and the whole month of April has been about, welcoming these two new beings into the extended Grace family.
Yes, with open arms. I just got back from visiting her down in Florida, and I had 4 days just chewing little pieces of her. She's missing part of her left ear, and I might have taken a nibble out of her right calf as well. No, but sorry, I'm looking out my window here, and there is a turkey staring me in the face. Like now, I wish it was a video because there is a turkey literally begging to be on the podcast.
Oh my
Oh,
God, gobble,
only
gobble.
only in New England. But yeah, so I got to be in Ireland for a week earlier in April. And then on the other end of April, into May, I got to be in Florida for a few days. So kind of felt a little bit greedy. And there was a bit of guilt, of course, that came up because God forbid I took, two breaks within 4 weeks of each other. It's interesting what comes up, isn't it? When you take a little bit of time
Yeah,
off. And even though, you're taking, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure you do as well. I take my work with me. And that's, to keep up with
yeah.
things because I really hate coming back and being completely overwhelmed with emails and things to catch up on. So I do try and do a little bit every day. But here's something I want to ask you. Do you have a good boundary when you go away? Do you set a schedule of I will work during this hour and that hour, but no other hour? Or do you kind of just, if it comes to you, you'll just, I'll get an hour done here.
So, well, I'm the same in that like I am never not, in my schedule. Like
Yeah.
I was away as well. Like I was off for 2 weeks,
Hmm.
and I still published, the I still we still did the podcast, so I was still editing,
Hmm.
publishing, posting. I was still writing my Sunday newsletter, and I was still writing my Wednesday blog post. Like I don't even know how many hours, but I would say I probably worked at least a day and a half,
Yeah.
full day and a half a week while I was away.
Hmm.
Now, I don't have a set schedule, but I know that I am, when I say an early bird, I don't mean that I get up early. I go to bed very early. I don't do night times anymore.
Hmm.
And so my evenings, I am generally in my room from 7 o'clock.
Hmm.
And that's usually when I do my work, which isn't ideal, but that's the way I do it. When I was on my break, I was fine because I was off all day and I was doing my thing. Now,
Right.
it would be the reverse when I'm at home. When I'm at home, I will work during the day, and then, at night, I'll just do my own thing. So that's what I did. I just took that time when I would go to my room, just to decompress and be on my own at night. That's
Hmm.
when I would do the work, and I could be working up till midnight,
Mm.
you know doing whatever that I'm doing. Basically, just either writing, editing, or posting, or whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
Um, or I might do a bit in the morning before we get going, but mostly in the evening. When I'm away, that's usually when I'm doing my work in the
Yeah,
evening.
it's interesting the flip, isn't it? I'm trying to think. So when I'm here,
Mm.
I'm mostly doing admin during the day. I'm teaching in the afternoon, and then when I come home at like 6:30, quarter to 7, dinner and yeah, room, just space. But also, I've
Yeah,
got a family, so I give them a bit of my time as well. And obviously, I want to be with them and ask them what they've been up to and does anyone need help with anything. So, I think, on the holidays, um, for me, at least this last couple of times, yeah, I just don't have a set schedule. there were a couple of days
Mm,
where I was like, I'll just bang this out in the morning because we're not going out till lunchtime. And then there were times where,
exactly.
we were going out for the day and we'd be home early. So I'd say, okay, I'll just get it done in the evening. I don't love working in the evening. My brain power is not, I'm sure
No.
this is the same for most people. My brain power is just not as strong, obviously, in the evenings. And I like to kind of wind down so I can get, a good night's sleep. But, I didn't take my family on either of my trips with me this time. So I
Mm,
had to there was a little bit of guilt involved in that. However, they were still in their routines. There was school, Frank had work. So, and nobody's, making me feel guilty except for myself. But there is that slight kind of, you know, it's like, it's not even really, is it an anxiety? Is it a, um, kind of a trepidation? There's something that comes with me that as soon as I land and I'm here for my holiday, I'm already saying, oh, hopefully now it won't be too long until I can get back. That they
mm,
won't notice that I've been gone too long or that they won't need me too much while I'm away. And fucking hell,
yeah.
it's never, my brain is never free from all of that. I can't just go and be there and not worry about anybody or anything. Or are the classes running all right? Because if I do leave, I normally get people to cover classes and they're teachers who are wonderful and who have been trained. And I know that they're doing great. And I know it's probably good for the kids to even get, another kind of teaching within the course. So it benefits everyone all round. But God damn, that sense of
Mm,
you shouldn't be here. You should be working and, doing your usual day's
yeah.
worth of
As if you're
shit.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like as if your work didn't fucking literally like isn't like a stowaway came on the holiday with us. Yeah, I think it's probably it's that mental load. The mental load never gets left behind.
No, that's it.
Do- No, yeah, it doesn't. I would have to be actually knocked unconscious. And even then, it would probably haunt me. I'd probably, if I was ever in a coma, I'd probably come out of it exhausted, because I'd
Mm.
just be fucking working in there. It is that brain. um, we have those brains, and probably why we have that entrepreneurial thing, because it's almost like if we're not solving problems, we don't know who we are.
And we have to constantly reinvent, right? Like I'm having a slow session this
Mm,
session. My spring session had a lower registration than other sessions. So my brain doesn't feel safe. Immediately,
mm,
I feel that my bank account is being threatened. So every minute I have
yeah,
to spare, why would you be lying on a beach thinking about nothing when you could be reinventing and creating the next thing to sell so that you can have
yeah,
that peace of mind? So, I often think about people who, they work and they get their paycheck and that paycheck is guaranteed no matter what. That they, obviously they put in the work, but they know exactly what their work is and what they need to do every single day. It's just not how it works in our world, right? It's up to us when
yeah.
we do the work, how we do the work, what we add, what we subtract. And it's a massive responsibility.
Mm. That's why I have a day job now, is because it's like it's a very different experience. All I have to do is show up at the time I was told to, do the tasks, and come home. I don't have the mental load of making sure that the revenue is created that I am going to be paid out of. It is
Hmm.
such like what was shocking to me about taking on a job, because I did that when I came offline. I was like, I need space. I need space from, my own business in terms of like being responsible for my own paycheck. I just not doing okay. And and then my immediate panic was, well, I'm going to have to work a minimum of this amount of hours for to even get a job to cover myself. And if I like I was thinking like 25 to 30 hours, and I was like that's nearly that's nearly full time.
Hmm.
There's no way I could, there's no way I'm going to be able to work that many hours and it not feel like a full-time job to the degree that it will eat into time that how am I going to keep my own thing going? if I'm working for someone else for 30 hours a week.
And not on a salary
And
or not with the benefits.
yeah, so I was thinking to myself, like, even just time wise, and do you know what shocked me is how it actually created more space in my week. It just goes to show you how overworking I was. So
Mm,
when I go there, and also the mental load of my work, so 8 hours working on my business
yeah.
is the equivalent of probably 16 hours working in somebody else's,
Mm, yeah.
mentally speaking.
Yeah. I could
You know,
relate
it's
to
just
that.
not draining me in the same way. It's just a physical energy that I'm using when I'm in my day job. Yeah, there's a bit of mental energy in terms of your remembering orders and things like that. But that becomes it's kind of like what Patrick said one time when I was like, how do you remember all your lines for for his acting roles? And he was like, you just kind of develop an actor's brain, is what he said.
Mm, yeah.
So you develop a brain for whatever thing that you're doing. But anyway, and then, yeah, it was actually shocking to me to realize that I could be working a day job for 30 hours a week and still have time to do my own thing. And it also made me an awful lot more discerning in terms of what I was spending my energy on,
Mm,
in my own work. And that's, I was like, well, social media was actually taking up a lot of that time and fruitlessly,
yeah.
you know.
In case you can hear dogs
Anyway, so
barking,
speak
there are dogs outside now
I
barking at
can't.
the turkey. Just letting
Oh,
everyone know what's going on out here. It's quite the scene. Tell you. It's very,
and
very interesting
is
altogether.
the turkey just like meh, whatever?
Yeah,
The turkey
very
obviously isn't running away
defiant,
from the dog.
very defiant, fuck you kind of turkey. Like, has a total attitude.
Right.
Walking around the neighborhood like he owns it. Good for him.
Okay. So
Um,
definitely like a New England turkey, just like.
he's like, what the fuck are you looking at? Huh? You got a
Yeah.
problem, Charlene? You got a fucking problem?
I
I'll pull your fucking hair out of your fucking head. Sorry for my terrible Boston accent, Bostonians, but there you go.
But anyway, speaking of routines, something that I have yet to, you know, I don't want to say master, because I don't know if that is, maybe it is the goal, I don't know, is bringing my recovery as a whole on holidays with me, whether it is, and even if it's just,
Mm,
a weekend or whatever, it depends. Like there's been times where, it won't even travel a day, and then there's times when I can make it travel a day, or, travel 2 weeks or a weekend. Earlier on this year, I was in Budapest for a week getting dental work done.
mhm,
And I came home from that and my recovery sustained, I was able to sustain it while I was away. And when I say recovery, I
mhm,
mean like my self care routine to the whole of it, like which includes, making sure I'm hydrated, sticking to, like, you know, nutrition plans and food plans for the day. And I
mhm.
don't mean that in a dieting sense.
No.
I mean in a mindful, I know what I'm going to eat and I know why I'm eating it, as opposed to, oh, Jesus Christ, I haven't eaten all day and now I'm starving and that will do,
Mhm.
which has consequences, in terms of, shitting through a hairnet then because, I ate the thing that I swore off that I wouldn't eat or whatever it is,
Yeah.
or it has the effect on me. And then that ends up, it kind of fuck it. That's what it is. It's fuck it eating,
Yeah.
which results in oh fuck. So I'm, I do know that I'm learning, every trip teaches me something about that.
Mhm.
But how are you with that kind of thing, And I know that when you come to Ireland, there is that, and it's the same for me,
Yeah.
depending on where I go.
The
So one of the big
longings. I
ones
have
for
to
me
hit
is
all
when
my
I'm over.
longings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the first thing I was going to say was when I think of you going to Budapest
Yeah,
on your own
yeah,
with
yeah.
nobody else to have to worry about or, compromise with or any of that, did you find, and I have to imagine, that when you're on your own on a holiday, because I don't know that I've ever even done a holiday on my own, that it's easier to stay in your routine because you're not having to barter with anybody else. You're not having to compromise. You're not having to give in to somebody else saying, well, I want to go out tonight. Like, you don't have to go out when you're on your own. You can choose. Do you find it easier or harder when you're on your own?
I'm laughing because I assume it's like if it was Terry that was with me, none of that would apply anyway because I never have to bargain with Terry. Terry is like always a go along, kind of like he'll just go wherever. I never am in that situation, but I know what you're saying. Um, no, it's always me. It's always me, in terms of now, in saying that, um, if I am in a situation where I don't have full control, it is harder. It
Mm,
is definitely harder because, I'm not in control of when I, stay and go. I'm not
right.
in control of what else is ordered. I'm not in control of who else is doing what. And
Hmm.
all of those things play into the environment. So the environmental triggers, if I don't have control over the environment, um, well, then that's when things get really hard for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is really interesting because it kind of comes back again to relying on control
Hmm.
as a way to feel and stay safe,
Yes. Yeah.
as opposed to what I'm being invited into constantly is surrender, and I just don't seem to know how to do that, you know,
Yeah.
even though I surrender to chaos all the fucking time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking of the last few trips that I've taken, and there was one trip that stands out for me because it's the only trip that I can remember in the last 5 years where I stayed in routine. And
Yeah.
I I don't even know, besides planning for it, I don't know what else helped me stay in routine. And it was a trip down to Florida a couple of years ago. I packed my sneakers and I was on a walking streak. And I was adamant that I was not going to miss my 2 miles every day. And I didn't. I missed
Yeah.
no steps. I got up. It didn't matter if it was too hot or too cold. I got out and I did it on holiday. And when I came back from the holiday, that's when I started faltering. Even though I had had like six
Yes.
week lead, I had 6 weeks leading up to it. I did the week down in Florida. I walked 2 miles. That's kind of my daily goal of walking. If I get to three, great. But two is what I try to aim for. Have not been good at it at all lately. But this particular trip down to Florida, I stuck with it. I did it. I felt so good. And it was like when I got back from the trip, I rewarded myself for staying in routine on my holiday by not walking for the next 2 weeks and eating shit because I'd been so good on my
Yes.
holiday. So, like, the reward for me seems to, jump in and rear its ugly head. I always feel that sense of
Yes.
I deserve a break from this, but the break from it doesn't look like a fucking bubble bath and a bowl of grapes. The
Hmm.
reward, usually is damaging and destructive.
Yeah. It is so fucking interesting. It's almost like, the image that's coming to mind now is swimming, So in terms of swimming, I learned when I was young, I learned a technique, breathing technique for swimming. So I can swim the breaststroke and I know how to do what's called bilateral breathing. You just like you
Right.
do a stroke and you lift your head to the left and then you do three strokes and to the right.
Mm.
So I can swim and breathe at the same time.
Hmm.
Now, there's a lot of people who can't swim and breathe at the same time. It's one or the other.
Hmm.
So they'll, put their head in the water and they don't know how to breathe while swimming. And so there's a bit of swimming and then there's like the gasp.
Hmm.
So it's almost like holding your breath, when you are doing things. But anyway, when I think of Budapest as well, what just came to mind is I was actually afraid. Once again, fear came to the rescue. I was afraid going to Budapest. Not of Budapest, but I was afraid, oh, I'm going to be on my own, and that's a license for me to do anything. There's no, and I'm scared. I'm scared of losing the run of myself. I'm scared of losing control. And then I'm on my own, out of control, and that's really scary to me.
Hmm.
So the fear kind of like kicked in, and I had planned it and I envisioned it. When I think about the amount of effort I put into that trip, I found out like where will I be getting off the. So
I
I get from
remember.
the
I
airport
remember
to the
you knew
clinic.
everything in your area.
I walked the streets on Google Maps. I
Hmm.
found Lidl and I found the route back to my flat. And when I was packing, I packed a grocery bag to bring to Lidl with me.
Mm. Yeah.
And and I told myself what I was so I planned it down to the um like it's so that when I got there, all I was doing was following a plan. That's all. I was following instructions. So there was no decision making having to happen in the moment, which I think as well is like, the whole planning of everything, which is probably why it's such a womp womp, because there's a part of that that is exhausting,
Hmm.
like that constant mental energy. Like one of my dreams has always been, to just be able to just wing it, for this to all just be integrated, something that I just naturally do and don't have to think about.
Yeah.
And it is all the thinking about it
That's
that
it.
exhausts me. And
You'd love to just be second nature, just automatic.
this is who I am, yeah, as opposed to this is what I do, because that's a whole load of fucking doing as opposed to a whole load of being. But yeah, so that's what we were kind of, just like going to discuss today is this like what happens when everything is like we were talking about the difference between like this internal scaffolding and external scaffolding. And when you're at home and you're in your routine, there's all this familiarity, there are anchors. And I think that those anchors, there's fewer decisions that need to be made, there's fewer surprises happening. And when you are in that situation, things become kind of automated
Hmm.
and automatic. And it's like you're just rolling out the same thing every day. But when you're away, when something changes, you don't even have to be away. But if anything happens that changes the environment or the automation of it, novelty, any kind of
Hmm.
disruption, or some kind of stimulation that comes in. Like, for example, if somebody next door started building
Hmm.
and now there's noise in my day that I'm not used to, that's new stimulation that my brain has to deal with. That's going to knock my coping off its axis,
Yeah.
you know? Um, I just find it endlessly fascinating how I'm being taught over and over again, that I'm doing, I have a certain routine in place, and then something changes and I learn something new about how it went wrong, what I wasn't prepared for, how I got derailed,
Yeah.
what kind of surprise happened.
Speaking of surprises, right? This is what I would love to like really dive into and try and figure out. What is it about going on holidays that we have, like not just we, but everyone, mostly everyone I know who goes, throws caution to the wind, throws the routine out, and it's a party. It's a party. It's you're eating things you normally wouldn't eat. You're eating more than you'd normally eat. You're eating when you're not hungry. You're drinking or whatever the habits are that you are restricting or depriving yourself of, and maybe those are the words. Maybe that's exactly why it's happening. Is it that we should be building a life for ourselves that doesn't require us to feel deprived? Like if we're living a life that doesn't feel deprived, well, then naturally going on holiday would be no different. But like you had said, when I come back to
Mm,
Ireland, I have a list. I need to go get me chipper.
mm,
I look forward to this. I want to get me Chinese, um, a 99, which is an ice cream with a flake in it for anyone who is not familiar with a 99. Actually, I didn't get a 99 the last time I was home, so now I'm going to have to come home for that. But, um, you know, what is it
Do you feel
habit? Is
robbed
it
not having had
habit?
that?
I feel that I've let myself down,
Well,
not having me 99. Haven't let myself
funny,
down.
I was actually journaling about I was journaling about this a lot while I was away. It's almost like, does it feel like a missed opportunity?
Yeah, it is. It's like it's like a checklist. I go home with a checklist. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like a sense of
Yeah. Okay.
accomplishment that I come back and I'm like, oh, I got that, I got this, I brought the Easter eggs home, had my prawn crackers. No, I fucking enjoyed every bit of it. I can't tell you that I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no regrets.
Yeah. Oh God, I did so much journaling about this when I was away because I kept thinking to myself, like, what is, you know, what is going on here? Because for the first week, I was very relaxed about the whole thing,
Hmm.
and then something, and I'd have to get my journal out to see what happened in the second weeks. Things started to change in
Mm,
that, like, the it started to fall apart. Now, I
mm,
don't know. I'd have to go back over my journal to examine exactly what, because I was documenting while
mm,
I was away. And and it was actually it was a very fruitful trip in terms of observing this,
mm-hmm,
you know. Now, I just want to respond to what you were saying there. Most people I know, when they go away, they let their hair down and all of that.
mm-hmm,
Now, would you believe that I truly believe that that is a bias. That is, in terms of, because I used to believe that as well. I had a bias towards that being the way. That's what everybody does when they go on holidays. Everybody does it,
mm-hmm,
And I would tell myself that people, when they go out for a special meal, that they just blow it,
mm-hmm,
because that's all I was looking for,
mm-hmm,
right? But when I started to train myself to see other, to find the exception to that apparent rule in my head, because
mm-hmm,
in my head, what that then creates is, I should be able to do that.
mm-hmm.
I should be able to let my head down. So I have gone around with a story in my head that people are just winging it all the time, or that people are being impulsive or spontaneous with their food. And I even see it in the cafe where people walk in all the time and they have not given a single
Right.
thought
Like,
until they land at the
I'll just
counter
have that.
as
Yeah.
to what they're going to eat. Yeah. And I was fixated on those because I was like, I want to be that person. Like, I don't like that I have to pre-think all these things. But I've learned to find the exception, because I am looking at that as with the Oliver Twist, face press up the glass again, as in, like, that's the ideal, because that's how it should be and that's what I want to do. But I've trained myself. So there are people, and there's one couple in particular that I'm thinking of. So when me and Mum go to Spain, we met them, I think, 2 years in a row. And what I recognized about those people is that they are the exact same on holidays as they are here, as in, like, the daily walk is a religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they would get up in the morning and they would go for their walk, and they would come back and they'd have their breakfast after a good long walk.
Yeah.
So we ate enough meals with them for me to notice that there wasn't any blowing happen. There wasn't any
Mm,
fuck it. There was no fuck it eating or behave or drinking or any of that happening. They just were living the same way on holidays as
mm-hmm.
they had at home, only there was sunshine,
Yeah.
right? And I've seen other people do that, and I notice them now when they come into the cafe. I notice the people who come in and they know exactly what they're going to get,
Mhm.
and who get the same thing all the time and don't make impulsive, spontaneous decisions. They choose what they know, what they told themselves they were going to choose. And I've just started to normalize that as a thing, that there are people like that who do exist, who don't go off the rails because they're not on any kind of a fucking bandwagon to begin with,
Yeah.
you know? So
But that's
it
the
is,
difference.
it's
They're not
such a,
on a bandwagon to begin with. Because like not
exactly.
everyone has a, trigger or a trauma around food, you know, um And
Yeah.
that is fascinating. That is literally fascinating because I'm like, how so because we grew up with the good food and the bad food list. That's good for you, that's bad for you. That helps you lose
Hmm.
weight, that makes you gain weight. To this day, much as I still enjoy a sandwich, I never eat it without thinking, all right, well, I can't expect a weight loss this week, or maybe even can't expect a weight maintenance. Um, you know,
Yeah.
so being someone
But it
who's
was
always
only
on a
recent.
bandwagon of some sort, it always feels like, when I go on a
Yeah.
holiday, I just say, all right, fuck it, just not even gonna think about it.
Exactly. Food is fun.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
eating is fun, that kind of thing. And this is
exactly.
how you enjoy
And
yourself.
pleasurable, and
You
pleasurable.
take, yeah. It's almost like you take the bra of everyday life off. It's relief. So there is that. So there is a deeper thing happening. And funny enough, when you say about like the sandwich, diet culture taught, like I was so entrenched in diet culture that only until recently did I realize that slices of bread didn't have to be eaten in two. Like I'm allowed to have one slice of bread. Like it's okay. Like it's normal.
Oh
Do you know
my
what I
God,
mean?
that's
Like,
so true. Is that an Irish thing? Is that an Irish thing? Like when you're doing toast, putting on the, and I have to say, like, because I'd normally do like a nice avocado toast in the morning, so it's usually only one slice. But if I'm having tea and toast,
yeah.
it's like automatic, two slices of bread in the toaster.
Yeah, no, I for me it's a Weight Watchers thing. It's a hangover from the Weight Watchers days. For some reason, and I'd have to go back into and I'm not going to, but for some reason bread was coupled, like it was two slices. It must have been a set plan or so. I'd say that's. Do you remember those like 7 day boost menus
Oh
that you get
yes.
like it when you join? And it was 7 day plan. It was probably that where it was just like two
Wow.
slices of bread, and it was always a two slice plus. I also recognize that in my head, if I've already had two slices of bread, there's a problem then with the third slice. Like that's my bread allowance for the day.
Wow. Yeah.
That kind of way. So I recognize all that old thinking in there. But anyway, so yeah, it's just so interesting to observe what is it like do the David Attenborough, like observe the creature in its
Natural habitat.
scaffolding. Yeah, and in its scaffolding, and then observe when you take that fence down.
Hmm.
Like what's this they say about a horse? And Ted used to do this actually, and I even noticed it with Molly. If I put a lead on Ted or Molly, and I'm not even holding the lead, they think they're tethered to the ground. They'll just stand
Interesting.
still because there's a lead on them. It doesn't matter that I'm not holding the other end.
But
They just will stand there.
that's not the case for every dog.
Oh, I know that. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't do it outside.
Dog, yeah.
Now I could with Ted, but it does have that kind of like it's like that. It's like having a harness on. So when I'm living my day-to-day life, I feel like I'm on a leash. I have a harness on. But
Hmm.
then you send me out to, whatever, Spain for a week and suddenly the harness is off and I don't know, it's almost like I don't know how to cross the fucking road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Oh, but that's how it was. Now it's a learning all the time for me because it's like the last few trips that I've taken have been radically different because I am unraveling and unpacking all of this, and because I am not, I am further and further distancing my day to day from some kind of performance around, you know, eating or whatever it is that I'm doing, that I don't feel the need to blow off steam when I go away anymore.
That's it. You see, it's the
You know?
blowing off steam, isn't it? It's like, all right, I'm going to de stress. And de stressing means, and clearly, for me anyway, it usually means not going to plan anything because planning is exhausting. I'm just going to, let
Yeah.
fly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then next thing yeah, you're suffering. Your stomach is, you're just like, oh God,
Yeah,
so it actually, you know, it's only fun in the moment.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's always a
So
consequence.
yeah. So that the yeah, the environmental containment, let's say, relying on that, I think that's my newest piece of information is like after several times where I would go on holiday and all my self care would fall apart and I'd be like, what the fuck? And it's because I was probably over relying on the environment to contain me as opposed to learning how to. So I ended up on, when I was on holidays, I ended up with this metaphor of sailing, and that like being out of my routine might feel, it's just that it's like sailing without my crew. So
Hmm.
when a storm comes, which is just like a situation that I'm not prepared for, that I might find overwhelming for whatever reason, and it doesn't have to be a bad reason. It might just be a fucking massive menu in an establishment
Yeah.
I've never eaten before, and now I'm overwhelmed. You know, all it means is that like I am now navigating this storm without my usual crew. You
Hmm.
know, and there might be times when, how I kind of imagined it is that I will just leave the fucking wheel. I'll just go below deck. I'm not going to stay on deck for this. Fuck it. And I kind of go unconscious. Like if I will weather the storm, like, because that storm, we can't control the storm. So that like storm might come. But if I'm in my own environment, I know that I can just go to my room,
Hmm.
or whatever. That might be like part of my crew is just like, I can just go to my room and stay behind the wheel by having control of my environment. But if I'm away from, if I don't have that kind of control, I might just take my hands off the wheel and I'm like, Jesus, take the wheel, and I'll go
Hmm.
below deck and I'll let the fucking storm do whatever it's going to do to my ship. And then I come back up the next morning and
Hmm.
shit's everywhere,
Yeah. Clean up your mess.
you know? And yeah, and the damage has been done because I fucking jumped ship. That's how I was kind of thinking of it. That's what
I like that
happens, is that
analogy.
I
Yeah.
jumped,
Hmm.
you know, as opposed to recognizing when I am feeling overwhelmed by this storm and staying at the wheel. So actually, I came out of this latest trip with a new, what would you say, like a kind of a new understanding, or like when I came home, I felt myself, let's say, just having the post holiday blues and everything,
Hmm. Yes.
and having to kind of like readjust,
I,
like
I mean,
go
I'm in that
from
today.
being,
I literally got home last
yeah,
night and I'm dealing now with
yeah,
everything that I missed this weekend that I'm now being reintroduced to, on top of the thought of getting through the whole week and weekend. And the overwhelm
yeah,
is just, it's enough to, jump ship.
exactly. And you might jump ship by saying fuck it. It's usually fuck it, and it'll be,
Yeah.
I'm gonna crack open a bottle of wine, or I'm gonna fucking fuck it, just today. I'm just gonna eat the ice cream today.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna numb out in whatever way. Um, so I I started setting timers, just like
Mm.
10 minutes. Let me just ride the storm for 10 minutes.
Mm.
Let me just see what, let me just stay for 10 minutes. Let me not check out, because I started to feel myself wanting to check out. So what's happening to me? And then yesterday was a bank holiday,
Oh,
Monday
that's
at work, and it
right.
was insanely busy, insanely busy. And I
Yeah.
could feel it. And I've mentioned this before. Before I recognized the overwhelm, I caught myself planning a binge.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
Halfway through the day, I was filling somebody's fucking soup order.
Hmm.
And I caught myself images of stopping in the shop on the way home, and I was going to get a chocolate dinner.
Mm.
And
Now
that's
talk
what
talk me
I
through
was like.
that. How did you not do that? How did you not follow through with that? At what point, like, did a rationale kick in?
So what ended up happening was, first of all, I caught myself planning the exit, the checking out, because obviously I can't check out when I'm in work. So I started to fantasize about how I was going to numb out or medicate, or how I was going to, you know, that's all it was. I just started getting image, like
Hmm.
my mind started cycling through options,
Yeah,
like what was I going to do? Was it going to be chocolate? Was it going to be ice? What was it going to be?
yeah.
And I caught myself doing that. And then when I caught myself doing that, I was like, oh, I must be overwhelmed. So I didn't catch the overwhelm. I caught the planning to jump ship,
Right, but you've brought yourself to
which is
such
very
an
interesting.
awareness that you know there's something else at play.
Yeah. Yes. So it was because I caught myself planning the overboard,
Yeah.
kind of like jumping ship, man overboard, like I was planning my exit strategy in my head.
Hmm.
And then I was like, oh, I see, right, I'm overwhelmed. And then I started to, it's just so funny to me that has now become a trigger to help me, because I'm still not registering. It's still not registering in me the actual overwhelm,
Hmm.
right? It's my reaction to the overwhelm is what I've trained myself to register. So anyway, I recognized that I was, and then I started to tell myself, I was like, well, what else could you do? And because I have Molly, going for a sauna straight after work isn't an option right now, because it's a very long
Oh,
day for her to be at home. And it's just not an
yes.
option right now.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit more change. I'm not as free as I have been to just change tack and be like, okay, I need to go straight from work. I need to go to the lake and jump in the lake, or I need to go straight to the sauna. And so, because that's it, like something else I can offer myself that will help me decompress from all of the tension that is built up in my body throughout the day.
Yeah.
So then I started to think about. Now, I will say that I was also, eating, like I was also picking throughout the day, so I wasn't necessarily sober.
Mm.
I wasn't abstinent.
Okay.
I was already kind of off my game because of, something that had happened a couple of days earlier that really fucking upset me.
Hmm.
And I jumped ship.
There's always a trigger.
So
Yeah.
I still hadn't. Oh, see, that's it. Life is always going to life. And my reaction is to jump ship,
Hmm.
right? Now, I have been jumping ship unconsciously for years, but now I kind of know when I'm jumping ship. Sometimes I will just spontaneously, reflexively jump ship.
Hmm.
And what I have to do is when I catch myself in the water and I'm like, oh shit, and then I have to climb back on board.
Right.
And then another fucking storm or wave will come. And once again, I'll catch myself. This time I caught myself wanting to jump ship.
Hmm. Okay.
But I
So
had
yeah.
also kind of dropped my anchor a little bit, in that, like, I was still self medicating through the day. I was fucking picking up crumbs from the cakes
Yeah.
and shit like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was in it, because it's not perfect. But anyway, so now I'm kind of like in the water, realizing that I want to get back on the ship, but also anyway, all of this.
Mm.
So I started to catch myself in the process of planning the binge, and then also I had said to myself, well, I do have a dinner at home.
Hmm.
Like I have something ready, and I had brought lunch with me. So I had a good lunch with me.
Hmm.
In other words, like there was definitely enough protein in there. So I was also taking care of myself enough that I was just holding
Mm.
it all. And so what I said to myself was, well, obviously I have to go straight home after work because I want to get to Molly. And also I just need to decompress. So I told myself that I was going to go home, let Molly out for a wee, and then we were going to have snuggles for about an hour.
No.
We were just going to lie on the bed. We were just going to lie on the bed and snuggle for an hour. And I brought home I brought home a kind of this quinoa thing from work. It's like a quinoa chocolate thing. So I did bring home a fucking treat,
Hmm.
right? So that was my plan. I was like, I'm going to lie on the bed. We're going to snuggle. I'm just going to decompress for an hour, and I have this chocolate treat, and I'm not going to think about,
But it's a
I'm
chocolate
just, that's
treat that
all.
you consciously bought and not half of fucking Spar chocolate shelf. Like it is
Oh, well,
different.
that's it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and it was absolutely like it was basically it was almost like it was what I could do. I was just working with what was real in the moment.
Yeah.
I was just it was almost like a, well, you're not going to jump ship into the water, but here's a life raft. Let's
Right.
let's fucking jump off. Let's pretend we're jumping off the ship into a fucking life raft, but we're not actually going to lower it down into the water.
Yeah.
Right. So I did that, and then by the time I had had my rest,
Hmm.
so I got my snuggles, I had my, you know, quinoa fucking dip bar, whatever,
Hmm.
and I had snuggles. So I managed to meet some needs, and I got rid of the instant, the overwhelm of that tension.
That's
I addressed
great.
that.
Yeah.
And so I had a little bit more capacity after that. So I only planned to that far. So when I was like, I'm going to go home. Now I will say bringing the chocolate home with me was actually a bit of a, that was not what I planned. That
Mhm.
was a, I grabbed that very last minute going out the door.
Mhm.
That was like I just can't go home. I need something,
Okay. So you
you
brought,
know?
you did bring a
So that
crutch
wasn't
home. There
ideal.
was a bit of a crutch that came home.
I, br- yeah, and it wasn't part of the plan.
Hmm.
So it was you know, it was
Did,
just one,
did
it
you,
just was what it was.
do
But
you
anyway,
remember consciously choosing that um, to avoid stopping in the shop at the way home, or had you already decided you were not stopping in the shop at the way home?
so as you know, I work in the bakery.
Yeah.
What my brain, because walked me to the fucking fridge to rob something,
Yeah.
and what it wanted was one of those caramel squares or else a tiffin. It wanted
Yeah.
something that was going to put me in a coma.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And all I could do in that last moment, I was like, right, well,
Okay.
if you're that hell bent on it, here. And
But
I took the quinoa crunch bar because that's protein.
right, but that is such a conscious choice. I know it wasn't part of the plan, but
It
it
was
was
a
a
compromise.
fucking better. It was better than the damage you knew that you were capable of doing. Like that's
Oh,
progress.
100%. It was a
Yeah.
compromise.
Yeah.
It was a compromise, and it was almost like, and I did give in because I didn't have the capacity to fight it with willpower, and it's not
Yeah.
about willpower. And that's what I was going, and I don't want to rely on willpower anymore. So it was like a strategy. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, you're literally crawling the fucking walls. Here, have this.
Yes.
This will, there's protein in it, and so blah, 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 blah.
This'll
So I
shut you
came
up.
home, and it did the, yeah, exactly,
Yeah, I
exactly, and
know,
it
I
did the
know.
fucking trick.
Yeah.
It was like dipping a strawberry in chocolate
Yeah.
kind of thing, as opposed to a bar of chocolate.
Yeah.
So, so that's what. But anyway, it increased my capacity. It got me to the next hour. It got
Hmm.
me through the next hour because that next hour after walking away from the tension, that hour is crucial. What I do in that very first hour after peaking in my stress
Hmm.
is probably, that's where you will go to the pub. That's where you will light up the cigarette. That's where you will shop for the binge. And then once you open that fucking floodgate, it's
Hmm.
like
Free for
you're not
all.
going to be able to. So, yeah, so I got myself through that 1 hour, and I had enough rest by the end of that hour that I felt the wave coming again. And it was like, no, go down and get, you know, the
Wow, it
binge
came
still wants to
back.
happen. And I was, oh, yes.
I don't know why I'm saying that. Like that's never happened to me. It most certainly has.
Yeah. Mm. It was just like I held the tide back long enough that I was able to get a little enough space from it so that when it did come back, I was like, no, I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to have the salmon, and I'm going to have it on this bread, and and I did. I made it, and it was lovely, and I'm going to have a cup of tea with it.
Yeah,
And so that's what I did.
love it.
And so I managed to just, but it was literally taking it decision by decision by decision. It took me nearly 2 fucking weeks just to get through yesterday evening,
Oh,
if you know what
no,
I mean.
Jesus, Amanda. Like it is fucking exhausting.
Yeah,
But everyone,
yeah,
everyone has their thing. Whether it is food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cigarettes, whether it's a behavior.
Yeah.
everybody has something that is going to require a lot of their energy to navigate. Like nobody's without nothing.
Yeah. And then I also had, so there was an accumulative thing there of there was the month. So first of all, there was the event. So if you think this was actually a month long building up, there was our event,
Yeah.
which was, that because I had a massive vulnerability hangover after that.
Hmm.
There was that led into the break. And then coming back off the break, something happened.
Hmm.
Just I was challenged in a way that I wasn't expecting, and that triggered a big fight or flight response.
Hmm.
And then on the back of that, I had the bank holiday weekend. So like, it was accumulating the whole fucking time, and so what I've been using for this past month is not an abstinence model; it's a harm reduction model.
I love
You
that
know what I
though.
mean?
I
Like,
love that.
so
But you know what you've
it's not
done?
perfect recovery.
Yeah, but you've given yourself options, right? Because if you hadn't got that harm reduction option, well, then the only two options
Yeah,
were stay on the ship or fucking jump in. The option to jump in but crawl back on the boat wouldn't have been there. And like you've just
yeah,
hit something on the head that, it can't be black or white. You've got to offer
no,
some gray in there as well. So that if you can't fully get from black to white or white to black, you at least have the option of taking the fucking float, the buoy, you know, until you can figure out the
yeah,
next step. You don't have to go fully off. You can
yes,
hang
exactly.
on for dear life with this option
Yeah,
until you've put the supports in
yeah,
place to climb back on. That's huge. Because
yeah,
for me,
yeah.
very black and white when it comes to this stuff. It's all or nothing.
Yeah, and you see, that's why it ends up being, oh, fuck it. That's why it's a blowing
Yeah.
it when you go on holidays because you've been holding your breath. You've been only working with one model this
Hmm.
whole time and not giving yourself enough grace
Hmm.
for it to be imperfect and learning while you do it. The amount of fucking learning I got from this. And so it hasn't been perfect.
Mm.
But what I'm also doing, because here's the other thing as well, is that part of how I used to hurt myself in this was I would assess the damage and then give myself shit for it. So the assessing of the damage, in other words, stepping on the scales to
Hmm.
see
Oh,
what
yeah.
damage did you do. And that was a preemptive, that was almost like a way of getting myself back. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just,
Amanda, do you want to hear the laugh?
so I
Can I just
yeah,
totally intro? Do you know what I did this morning? I was
well,
dreading doing the scale thing because I haven't done it in a long time. But I just felt in
yeah.
myself, I was like, I actually was using it punitively. I was like, you need the shock of a number.
There you
You
go.
need the shock of a number. And even though intellectually I knew that if it was a higher number than I expected, the possibility was that I was going to actually fuck it. It may not have reeled me in. It may have had an adverse effect, right? I fucking
Yeah.
literally came out of the shower and I thought, oh Jesus, my hair is still wet, right? All the stupid things. That's going to be an extra pound and a
It's
half,
heavier.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
My boobs are heavy because I'm getting my
I better
period.
shave my toes.
I'm already getting like ready to deduct 3 pounds off the fucking weight that I read because of all the
Oh,
things that
I
I've come up with.
know.
And I fucking just said, Mel, it's just a fucking number. And I got up on the scale and I took a breath and I looked down and it said, you need new batteries. Fucking battery off. Battery did not work. Swear to fuck. And I took that as a sign that I'm not stepping on a scale for a while again. Fucking batteries. Amanda, I can't remember the
Melanie,
last time I've needed to change batteries on my scale.
can you imagine? This has just given me, we need to patent this. Can you imagine if you stepped on a scale and what it says is,
You're beautiful.
babe, you just need to rest. You
Yeah.
just need to
Yeah, I've
rest.
thought about this already. That you stand on a scale and
You need
instead of giving
water.
you a number, it gives you some sort of a positive affirmation or just a reminder.
Yeah, it just says to you, you're tired.
Yeah.
You need to sleep. Take a nap. Oh my God.
I know.
Yeah.
So there was
So
literally
that
the
is kind of
battery
like, so
with the
that's the
cross
part.
through it. And I was like, I was so, and then part of me was like, will I change the batteries in it? And I didn't. I
Yes.
didn't. I didn't.
So that's the controller.
Yeah.
That's so let's imagine that what that's like. That's
Hmm.
like the insurance company. That's like letting the insurance company on your ship
Hmm.
as opposed to being the captain and going around. So that's what I was doing because I also had the want to stand on the scale and assess the damage like an underwriter, like an insurance would. In other words, like, oh, your premium's going to go up now, bitch.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I was like, nope, the insurance fucking pricks are not getting on this ship. I'm going to be the captain. I'm going to stay on the ship for this part too. And so I was telling myself all week, yep, I've got some water on board. I took water on,
Hmm.
and of course I did because it was a storm, you know, and it got a bit battered. But I was like, and that's okay. Like I can deal with it. Like it's in other words, it wasn't you put weight on. It was like, no, I've taken water on my ship. My ship has water, and of course it has,
Mm.
and it's not
Yeah.
a problem.
That's
That kind of a way.
very
Like
interesting.
yeah. So I kind of like have this whole ship metaphor and being the captain, and about like how much of like how much of a captain am I really? you
Mm.
know and it has given me a bit of a boost because it's like I want to be a captain like this. It's actually exciting
Yeah.
to be a captain as opposed to being a scared passenger on a boat
Yeah. Yeah.
that I don't know who has the fucking wheel half the time, or I don't feel like I'm allowed to have the wheel or blah 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 blah. Anyway, the metaphor is I'm still working with it. I'm actually journaling. I have my art journal out here. Oops. And I have I can put the picture in the show notes over on the Substack, but I have this massive wave
Oh, I love
that I'm
that.
working with for my yeah, and I have an image of a captain. So um I just realized I'm after showing that now and it's not a video, but maybe it will be a video.
I will describe it.
Maybe we'll do a video.
Oh, Jesus. Well, if anybody wants to
Yeah.
look at me like this, um, it was a
But
beautiful
hey, are we
wave.
not just fucking keeping it real?
Yeah, well, this
Yeah,
is this
we're
is
just keeping
pretty
it real.
fucking real now. Like in all fairness, there's real and then there's vulnerable real. So Jesus
Okay.
Christ. Anyway, yeah, this is me.
Well,
Watch out, 'cause here I come. Let me fucking top is stained. Like a God knows, a God only knows what that is. Anyway,
I'll have to look at
yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
so yeah, so that's the whole thing is like, when I'm just paddling my little canoe around my own familiar waters, I'm grand. But when it goes out into the deep open sea, it's fucking scary out there. I jump ship all the time. But I also now am learning to just hide in my dinghy,
I love that.
you know?
You like what a takeaway for me and like an action takeaway for me is to add the gray. Not just have a black and white
Yeah,
answer, to have a gray. You know,
yeah,
there's three choices, not
yeah,
two. And the
yeah,
third one that I will add will be the middle one. If you don't feel that you can get, there was a program that I did a while back, and I think you know this program, but they would talk about, when you are planning for the day and you're planning, food and
yeah.
exercise and all the things, and it was good, better, best, right?
Oh
There
yeah,
was there was
okay.
good.
Mm-hmm.
So the good would be, it might be the good might be McDonald's, might be a hamburger and chips. And then the better might
Yeah.
be the hamburger with a side salad. And then the
Mm.
best might be salmon with the salad. But there were choices,
Yeah.
and none of them were off limits.
Yeah.
It was a,
Yeah.
a matter of what is your goal. And in order to reach that goal, well, then today maybe you should go with the better. And then, tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
you could go with the good. And then next week you can go with the better. It's, just systematic ways of thinking, I suppose. But I love that third option that I rarely give myself because I'm all or nothing most of the time.
Yeah, it's either perfect or fuck it.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, literally it was just like what's going to get me? Like I just need to get over this one big wave
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I'll think about the rest of the ocean. Anyway,
I love it.
so that's all for now. Thanks,
Yay!
everybody.
Yeah, and
Remember
share.
to
I was going to
go
say
on.
share in the comments because I would love to hear from anybody who feels, this way about going on holidays. Are you somebody who is more inclined to just continue living as you normally live when you're on holidays, or do you go off the deep end? It's just I'd love to get a gauge of, who does what for anyone who's willing to share.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. All right, chicken, and everybody, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.